Lisette van Doorn. You are CEO Europe at the Urban Land Institute. Thank you for joining us on BiTV.
Welcome.
The Urban Land Institute and PwC recently published its Emerging Trends in Real Estate Europe 2022, which is a survey of European real estate leaders' expectations for the year ahead. What are your biggest takeaways from this 19th edition of the study?
Yes, well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the report. There was actually a lot in it this year, and also a lot of different takeaways, I must admit. It's not a one straightforward view. And what we see for the short term is a huge level of optimism, almost based on a relief that hopefully the worst is over now, and we can finally get back to properly doing business. And that is driven by a very positive outlook on the availability of capital, both debt and equity. A majority that thinks forecasted returns will be higher next year, and less concerns about economic growth and other things. And then if we look a bit further ahead, it becomes more uncertain. So we question ourselves whether this is a sugar high we're looking at for the very next 12 months, yes, or is there more to it? Because there's a lot of uncertainty around inflation, around construction costs, supply chains, etc., all impacting on real estate.
Issues as well, if I understand correctly.
Yes, indeed. And basically what I think people wonder is, restarting the economy, what does it really mean? No, we thought, okay, let's get back to business and that's it. But now we notice that restarting the economy might have implications which take longer and might impact real estate, not just on the supervision, but also more fundamentally. So that's what the industry is trying to get to grips with. And if you then look even further ahead to the next 3 to 5 years, it gets even more uncertain. Everyone, a big majority, over two-thirds of respondents have organizational transformation on their radar screen and think it's a key priority. But it seems a bit like, yeah, that's important, but now I need to do business. So driven by changing consumer demands, of course, an ever stricter ESG agenda, real estate as a service, the demand for flexibility and amenities, and that is impacting real estate business models over time, with cash flows getting shorter, more volatile. You need to adapt your business to that. Key technology and skills are felt to be key to that, but kind of the industry hasn't fully got to grips with that yet. It's more like, yes, we know we need to deal with it, but I'm very busy with other stuff.
Okay, and the survey every year questions investors and industry leaders on the prospects of different sectors and geographies. As investors build back their confidence, how do they plan to navigate this recovery period?
Well, you see that they take the uncertainty into account. So what we see is a lot of defensive moves in that sense. If we look at the city prospect, it's the big capitals who dominate the top 3. London is number 1, Berlin is 2nd, and Paris is 3rd. And then for the other cities in the top 10, it's more the defensive, smaller, stable cities. Also where quality of living, sustainability, etc., play a bigger role. It's Amsterdam, Barcelona, Brussels has come into the top 10, Madrid, cities like that.
Okay.
We see similar picture on the sector side, where a very similar picture to last year also, where it was all about the defensive sectors that weren't hit by COVID or even profited from COVID, like logistics, residential, and also the more niche sectors like data centers, new energy infrastructure, life sciences. Remember, this is a sentiment survey. Yes. So we do not address how much capital will flow in the different cities, in the different sectors. So reality might turn different, because what is clear is that many of these sectors are still very small. So yes, there's the intention, but on the other hand, the sectors offer much less liquidity and are much less big. So the opportunity to deploy big amounts of capital to those niche sectors is much more limited. And then what you also see, what this also shows, I think, is a longer term trend, where asset allocation and also management will become much more granular. In the past, say 10 years ago, we talked about offices versus retail. At some point, we added logistics and some residential to that, and it was basically it. Now we talk about life sciences, we talk about student housing, we talk about senior living. We do not talk about residential as such anymore, because also the differences within those subsectors are massive. That's what we saw during the crisis, where
retail as well, if I understand correctly.
Fully true. Where we say generally retail doesn't perform well, but obviously we've seen retail parks, food-related retail doing really well. It's certain subsectors that don't perform well. So we can't just get away with saying retail is no good, office is no good. We need to dig deeper.
Okay, thank you. And as you alluded earlier, this year's study emphasizes the importance of organizational change for European real estate leaders. Can you detail a little bit more what are the key priorities in that regard?
Well, the top number one priority or success factor, if you will, is technology, is embedding technology in your organization. And actually, people made some interesting comments where they had built internal databases, where they had already done a lot of work, but still felt to be only at the beginning, just scratching the surface of what it would really mean, not only to optimize internal processes, but also to service the client better. And then second to that was felt to have run a sustainable business from an environmental and a social perspective. And obviously that's strongly linked to that ESG agenda. Interestingly enough, what we saw, we asked some further questions on that. ESG is still very much addressed from an operational perspective. We need to measure energy efficiency. Mostly what's being measured is environmentally related items. Social, still much lower on the agenda. It grows and it becomes more important, but the starting point is much lower.
Okay.
And then what you see is it's mostly used building certifications, etc. And where the industry is heading towards zero carbon, we need other tools. So, and that's what, it hasn't yet fully reached the strategic level and the impact on business models yet. And then finally, it's about skills. It's about hiring new skills, the not traditional real estate skills. It's about sociologists, customer service, hospitality, very much focused on how do I service the customer. And the customer in this sense is the user. So it's not, we almost go from a business to a business to consumer sector. And I think that is an important. Interestingly enough, I think over 90% thought technology was key, and only 70-something thought skills were the most important. I found that interesting because you could say, well, both are very high, but if you don't have the right skills, you never get to embedding technology properly in your organization. I would turn the thing around, but that's my observation.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for this insight, and thank you all for joining us, and see you soon on BiTV.